That's the, yeah, wow, very good. Hello everyone. So I think I'm the only one today speaking in English. I hope you understand. I'm going to speak slowly and hopefully clearly. So hopefully this helps you. My name is Ragnar Sill, and I'm coming from Europe. And I actually come from a very little country called Estonia. Now, is anyone in the room who knows where is Estonia? Anyone? Okay, few of you know. So if you think about the map, and if you know where Santa Claus is living, okay, in Finland, up in the north, then we are very close there. We are neighboring country to Finland, and you might not believe this, but it was actually snowing this morning. So you imagine how happy I am to be here in Thailand today. Yes? We have the most important day of the year in Estonia today. We are celebrating the Midsummer Night. This is the most important holiday. This is the day where the sun doesn't go down, so there is no night. It looks like this in the middle of the night. So I'm missing it, but I think it's for the good cause to be here with you today. I'm going to talk about creativity, the creative entrepreneurship, and creative city. We're going to talk about what you need to do to encourage more businesses in your creative cities, and what is the creative city about, and what it is not about. I didn't understand everything that the previous speaker said, but I saw some words on the slides, and they resonate very well on what I'm going to say. To have a good startup, to have a good business, to have a good living environment, you need basically three things. Firstly, you need to be passionate about what you do. You need to believe in what you do. You need to care about what you do. Secondly, and that's what I'm going to talk about most today, you need to be creative. The old way of doing things is past. The creative entrepreneurship, the creative industries, is the fastest growing economy in the world, the fastest growing industry in the world. People are ready to pay for non-essential things, non-material things, experiences, emotions, feelings, more than ever before in history. Okay? We're living in that kind of a world at the moment. So these people that give something extra to our products and services are becoming more and more important. And thirdly, you need to be networked. You need to be close with other countries. You need to be internationalized. Okay? The previous speaker talked about the digital nomads. This is all about learning from other cultures, traveling, being there at other markets. Now, I know this very well because I come from a country that is the size of left side of the main street of Chiang Mai, okay? But only left side. In my country, there is 1.3 million people. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny country. Now, what does that mean? Is that the problem that you have so little people, or is that an opportunity? Now, it all depends on how you think about this. When I talked with an Austrian startup a few years ago, I was in Vienna, and I asked that Austrian startup, and you know in Austria they speak German. So I asked that Austrian startup, who is your market? Where do you see yourself? because Austria is a small country of 10 million people. And they said, we are very lucky because our market is the entire German-speaking world, which is around 90 million people. So we say, yes, we come from a small country, but our market is 90 million people. What about you? They asked. Well, I said it's much easier with Estonia. If you come from a country of 1.3 million people, there's less than a million people in the world that speak Estonian language. So who is your market from the very first day? And the answer is the entire world is your market. Well, at least the English-speaking world, which is billion, if not more, people. So we might come from a small place, but we think big. And I think that is one of the key messages. You might not know much about Estonia, but I bet most of people in this room have used something that comes from Estonia, that Estonian people came up with. I think it's in your computers. I think it's in every one of your phones. If I ask what it is, you probably will not guess. The answer is Skype. Have you ever used Skype? Yes? Then you have been part of Estonian brains, yes? Now, to come up with Skype or other companies, you don't have to come from a hundred of millions of people of population, because brains is not a resource that depends on oil or, where you are. Now, let's talk about creative startups for creative cities. One of the key things here is, what is creative city? And by the way, what is creative industry? Now, there's two ways of understanding creativity, yes? One is a very broad understanding that every single person is creative. And yes, it's true. They often say that the most creative industry in the world is bookkeeping, yes, accountancy, because you have to be very creative to do the taxes. But talking seriously, the way we understand creativity in this context is more of an art and culture-based creativity. It's the skills and knowledge that comes from people like architects and artists and musicians and designers and game developers and your heritage, your traditions, yeah? And many, many other fields. So it's very deeply rooted of where we come from. Now, when you look at what is the creative city, then there's two big misconceptions that we have to talk about right in the beginning. One is that if you have a lot of cultural institutions in a city, like museum and opera and ballet and some galleries, that doesn't necessarily make you creative city. You might be a city of culture. You might be a city of museum, nice place to go, nice place to visit, make photos, put them up in Facebook. But creative city is somewhere where people want to come and work and live. Creative city is a place which attracts talents across the world, okay? So if you think about Chiang Mai and if you ask yourself, is Chiang Mai a creative city or not? Don't look at the list of institutions, but ask yourself, is this the place where creative people want to come or they want to run away because there's a better place to live? Now, if you agree with this, you start suddenly understand how important it is what kind of a city we live in. Because if you think about big investment by a, let's say, US company thinking about where to make a next hundreds of millions of dollars worth of investment, if a company makes a big investment, then it usually sends its top and part of the middle management with that investment. Now, it is very important that these people, these critical people, these top management people, would be in a place where they want to be. So not as a punishment, but a city which is lively, city where there's something to do. So indeed, culture, museums, music, art is important for the environment. Creative people want to be with other creatives. That's very, very important. You cannot build a technology park or industrial park in the side of the city, call it creative city, and send people there. Creative people don't want to be in those secluded places. So that's one thing. The second thing is that many cities have called themselves creative cities. Many. And nowadays there's a movement that many cities are taking away the word creative in front of it and replace it with another word. And the word is smart. So you see a lot of smart cities, smart regions. And what it basically means is it's a focus on startups, focus on IT, yes? Focus on new technologies. Now, I personally think that that's not the good way to go, because that basically means you disconnect that part of the industry, you disconnect those people from the actual place they are living in, yes? And that's the second important point. Creative city is a place where the community, the local community, the people in the society, the compassionate society, as the previous speaker mentioned, get the part of this ecosystem. They feel that they benefit from this. But if you make a medical companies cluster somewhere in the suburb of a city, I don't feel it. There's nothing there for me. So it's inclusiveness, it's transparency, it means people are engaged in this process. Now, what to do? I mean, how do we develop this? The critical word, the most important word throughout my presentation is the word ecosystem. There's often, I have worked in more than 30 countries in my life. And often when I go to different cities or countries, people ask me one question. They ask me, so we want to do this one big project. Please tell us, what is the best project we can do to develop creative city or smart city? Now, if you agree that it is about this society, it's about ecosystem, the answer is simple. To develop creative startups in creative city, you don't have one big thing. You have lots of small things you need to take care of. So if you think that there's one big project, one big house, one big center that you go and open before the elections and there's a fanfares, and then actually you have taken care of only one little piece of the entire puzzle, and you haven't developed the system. So there's basically three elements in developing creative ecosystem for companies. The first one, you have to understand the preconditions, okay? So what do I mean by precondition? Firstly, you have to have awareness from the people, from different parts. The creatives need to understand that they have potential. The policymakers, the governments need to understand. The other investors need to understand. So we need to bring people together. We need to have an understanding and overview of what is it that we are strong. It's called mapping. We understand what is our strong points, and what are the weaker points. If every single place develops the same thing, this is not, it's called smart specialization. You look at what's your strength in your city. And also, it's very, very important, it's written strategic alliance. Now, what does it mean? It means that if you develop creative industries, you cannot develop it only by business people, or only by culture people, or only by scientific people. You have to bring all these parts together. That is an absolute precondition. In the government, it means that you have the cross-departmental commission. I started to work in the Estonian government 13 years ago. I know some of you think that I was still in the kindergarten 13 years ago. It's just that our climate is so cold. It's like living in a refrigerator, you know, and in refrigerator everything is more fresh. So I look fresh. When I was the deputy minister of the state secretary for the arts, we put together a government committee of the Minister of Culture, Ministry of Economy, and Ministry of Education. And we took all decisions, three of us, because we understood how these three parts help each other. The second thing, you need to look at what can you do to support the creative startups, the creative businesses. Again, the key word here is that you need to have an ecosystem of support for creative startups. Often when you come to a place, they tell you that we have, as I said, one part of this covered. So for example, they say, oh, we have a center, we have an incubator or an accelerator, and we are very proud of this, okay? So I'm asking them, very good, do you have training programs? Do you have mentorship? Do you have a physical infrastructure for creatives, clusters for those that don't want to be in the incubator? Do you somehow support the access to finance for those companies? Do you support the clustering and networking? And how do you support the exporting of the services and products of those companies? And the answer is no, we don't have this, we don't have that, we don't have that, but we do have a building, we do have an incubator. That is not an ecosystem, okay? Another very important thing is to understand that different startups are on a different level of their development. As we talked before, they might be ideation stage, they might be in scaling stage, and different companies need different type of help. Some only need encouragement. Some need partners. Some need money. So you need to have something for everybody, not just one big thing. It's like a diagnosis, if you're a doctor and you come to a city and you look at what's the health of creative ecosystem in Chiang Mai or in any other city, you kind of look at this and you answer yourself, how good are we here? How good are we here? How good are we here? The more comprehensive the picture is, the better it is for the system. And then the third important thing, and that is that when we talk about creative businesses and creative startups, we don't only talk about businesses that operate within those sectors. So we don't only talk about design companies, architectural companies, game developers, etc. We talk about what these people can do for the other industries. This is called spillover effect or crossover effect. Creative people, the art people, people coming out from art academies and design universities will be, I tell you, some of the most important specialists in the future. And not so much because of what they do, but because how they think. When you talked about disruption and pivoting and finding new ways, then this is everyday reality for artists. Artist is about disruption. Art is about new way of thinking. Art is innovation. If you're not innovative as an artist, you're copying. And that's not an artist. So we need those people not because of the skill to paint, but because of the skill to think. And the ways that they can help are endless. They can be helpful in medicine. They can be helpful in the way we are teaching our children. It is very important for tourism. It's important for environmental sustainability, etc., etc. Okay? Let me bring you an example, something that inspires me personally. You know what is asthma? Do you know what is asthma? You know when people cannot breathe. Yes, when people cannot breathe. And this is an illness that in Europe and in Northern America, in the developed world, more and more people suffer from asthma, okay? And you need this inhaler, you know this, you need to take this medicine from, okay? You know this. Now, they made a research in United Kingdom, and they found out that the number of children that end up in a hospital because of the attack, of the breathing attack, of asthma attack, is growing very quickly. But they also found out something interesting. They found out that 75% of those children that ended up in a hospital could have been prevented if only these children could know how to take the medicine correctly. Okay? How do I inhale correctly? Now, what do? Usually you take engineers, medical professionals, and you make innovation to that inhaler. Yeah? Inhalator. They did it. It didn't work. Some people said, let's put more drug in it. Let's put stronger medicine in that bottle. Now, that's a problem, because if I take it correctly, I get an overdose. What do? Do we do a campaign, a poster, how to inhale correctly? Do we do a YouTube video, how do I inhale correct? Well, it's basically like teaching you how to swim in a YouTube video. That doesn't work. So what do? So there is this example, a project where they brought, in addition to engineers and medical professionals, they brought children, they brought parents, they brought designers, they brought game developers, and they gave that task, said, can you come up with something completely new? Because the old way of doing doesn't work. And they came up with something that is called T-hailer, like T-shirt, T-hailer. Now, this is an inhaler that is actually a practice tool. It is only at your doctor's office. It is connected with Bluetooth, with a computer, and in the computer there's a game. There's a golf game, There's a ball and there's a hole. And a child needs to try that inhaler as long as the ball goes into the hole. Okay? So if he takes too little, the ball stops halfway. If he takes too much, then it goes left and right. So he needs to practice so many times that the ball goes to hole every time. Are children good in following instructions? No. Nowhere children can follow instructions. But are children amazing in playing games? Yes. So that is an example how working with designers and game developers actually can help you solving some of the problems of medicine. My time is up. I wanted to just quickly tell you about how we network creative companies around the world. So there is a global creative business cup, and Thailand is part of this. This is a place where you have creative companies from all over the world coming together to pitch to investors, to select the best, but also to network, to learn. Last time it takes place, the global final takes place in Copenhagen. You have a lot of prizes. You have more than 5,000 startups. You have lots of guests. You have pitching. You have 60 countries. It's very, very international. But to do that, you need to speak English. Another critical point. How can you be international if you don't speak English? Okay, that's another point. Now, the very last point I make is that in addition to simply pitching, we in the Creative Business Cup work also with creative business solutions, like the inhaler that I mentioned. So you actually work with other companies, traditional companies, and you see how can creative startups help to solve some of the critical problems they have. This is not new. This is what you discussed as well. It's ideation, it's matching, it's co-creation solutions, and it's actually getting to the market. You take one step after another. So the way I want to speak is this is one of my favorite examples, and I will finish with this. The last story. Again, medicine, because I'm so passionate about how creativity can work with medicine, but not only. The 2012 winner of Creative Business Cup is a little company from Croatia. Croatia is next to Italy, if you know. It's a small company called Daddy the Guardian. Daddy the Guardian. Like a teddy bear. So what do? They do teddy bears. You know what a teddy bear is? Yes, fluffy little thing. Who owns a teddy bear? Show me. Who has ever had a teddy bear? Anyone? Fluffy little animal. You have, yes? Very good. Now, if you have children, you know how difficult it is to monitor the health of your child all the time. So what that company did was they mixed design, game, making toys, with medical needs. And they came up with a little teddy bear, simple teddy bear, which is full of sensors and chips. And when your child is sleeping with that teddy bear, you know, holding very, very tightly when they sleep, it actually monitors the movement, the sleeping patterns, and the temperature. And sends the signal to your mobile phone. So when you wake up in the morning as a parent, it already tells you if your child is sick or not. Okay? So again, if you only let medical people coming up with medical solutions and tools, you often come up with very ugly things. Okay? It needs creativity. It needs culture, it needs traditions, it needs different type of thinking to come up with something that has not only medical value, but that has more value in terms of creativity that can be sold across the globe. Okay? So my time is up. I'm happy to talk to you in the breaks. And, you know, it feels like sauna here. By the way, the word sauna, you know the word sauna? Sauna, that's the only international word that comes from my language. So sauna is an Estonian Finnish word. We speak almost the same language. So it's funny that we come from a country of snow and cold, and the only word that came out is sauna, and it really feels like sauna at the moment. Thank you very much.